we're going to get everybody in here.
Yeah.
Everybody in. All right. Oh, more people than I thought. Okay, now I really have to say something, huh?
Two classes now.
Yeah, as opposed to just me just sitting in here and passing out bookmarks to random people. So, but
We'll try not to be difficult.
right therein lies that's exactly it. That's the topic of today's or my talk today. Oh, we got another one. Welcome, welcome. Um, how's everybody doing? Is everybody enjoying the Healing Oasis today?
It's
Yeah,
very
this
nice
is-
energy here.
Good. I'm glad. I mean, it's with the support of everybody out there, and we've been very blessed and lucky to have all these great people and healers in the house. And so, positioned myself last, was kind of thinking about whether or not I wanted to do this because see if there's any interest in learning how to deal with difficult people. It's almost as if something that's like a rite of passage that we have. A lot of the concepts I'll be talking about today, by the way, my name is Wei. I am one of the directors here at the Life Oasis, also one of the co-founders and the author of the co-author, because I have a person that's helping me write it because she's a writer and I'm just a talker and thinker, of the book called The New Age Monk. We have a monk in the house, actually. Hey, Eduardo, welcome. Thank you. So I'm kind of on the spot now, right? So I want to start off with talking about, what the New Age monk is really all about. The concept behind the New Age monk is because the typical monastic approach on what it is to be a monk, and when I'm talking about monk, not just a male monk, but females can be monks too, nuns, whatever you want to call it. They don't necessarily have to shave their heads, but the traditional thought of what a monk actually is someone that decides to, release bindings in the world and follow a specific discipline. Traditionally, when you think of a monk, you think of somebody that basically puts themselves in a monastery or puts themselves in a particular situation where they are almost separated from society. It's like a big, huge commitment. The New Age monk is for someone who loves that type of discipline, loves that lifestyle, loves that thought process, but has a family, has a job, has things that they don't necessarily want to follow the path of Buddha or St. Francis, just drop and just not be very congruent with the rest of the world, right? It's a huge commitment on Buddha's part, and without that, Buddha would not have been Buddha, right? However, the rest of us, how do we deal with that? So the New Age monk is basically the concept of living that or embracing that inner monkness, so to speak, without having to change a thing in your life. Okay. For example, meditation is one thing I like to use because a lot of people say we start with meditation for everything that's spiritual. Before we start on any path of spirituality, the first thing that people always say is, do you meditate? Well, do you, right? But then what happens is, I don't have time to meditate. We make every excuse in the book. When I sit down and close my eyes and try to meditate, it gets too noisy in my head and I can't. So what happens, we make excuses, but we forget that we need those moments to find that, that serenity, that peacefulness, that to embrace that spirituality. And what the New Age monk is a practical modern day approach on spirituality, which is to find the knuckles of time in everything that you do already in life, to find those moments of meditation, Zen states, peace of mind. For example, simple things that we don't have to consciously think about every single day. We all wake up, we all brush our teeth. Do we think exactly about how we're going to brush our teeth every single day? Which teeth we should brush today versus what we did yesterday? Now, for the most part, we all kind of brush our teeth the same way day after day after day after day. We fold our clothes pretty much the same way after we develop that habit, right? So what do we do in those moments when we are doing the same thing that we already know how to do? That by embracing the inner monkness, the New Age monk utilizes that time, those knuckles between the daily activity, to meditate, to find that, embrace that inner spirituality, the inner monkness within all of us. Okay, so that's the baseline concept behind the New Age monk, and so we'd address different topics. And one of the topics that we talk about, which is something that we all have to deal with on a daily basis, is the topic of difficult people. One of my first experiences learning how to deal with difficult people, I was listening to a talk by another monk from Australia. I forgot his name, but it is very cool because what he talked about was he was going through his journey that was somewhat similar in the types of people that I've worked with. I worked with people who were institutionalized, people who were criminals, children who come from bad families, and they're always complaining about how difficult someone is, or I have an issue with this person, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of different thoughts, but it was interesting because I was talking to this monk, When I was listening to this monk, and he talked about all these different things on what to do and how to deal with difficult people in this situation. I was taking notes, all the way till the end. And when I got to the end, he made one simple statement that made me just throw all the notes out the window. There's a concept behind the Toltec belief system, which is a Latin, I think it's Mexican, right? Or it's Mayan, or the Toltec Don Miguel Ruiz, what he talks about, something like that. Where there is a philosophy that everybody that you see, everybody that you embrace is a reflection of you. So what happens is anything that you notice about a person, if it is not a reality that exists already inside you, you would not notice that person. Have you ever been in a situation where you saw something happen, okay, and it just rubs you the wrong way, and you look around for confirmation for everybody around you to see if they're getting affected, and it seems there are people that are completely oblivious. And what we do is say, oh, they're just oblivious. They don't notice anything. But you notice it, right? You feel it deep inside your soul. You feel it like you vibrate completely with this, oh my God, this is such a terrible situation. You look at the person next to you and they're like, do. And our excuse, they're oblivious. But what if it was because that particular incident, that particular event has no bearing, is nothing that has no bearing on the reality in their world. They have no idea what that event actually is. But because you've experienced, or it is a part or is a function of you, all of a sudden it's part of your reality. It's in your conscious mind. So the concept behind that was what happened with this monk when I was listening to him. He kept talking about, well, when you encounter this situation, what I did was da 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 da. And then when I encountered this particular situation with a difficult person in the office, what I did was I just responded the same way that this person went, but then I balanced the energy out by taking a different approach. I reversed the polarity. I did the yin and yang, and so I was taking notes like crazy. I said, oh yes, this is really good stuff. Then at the end he says, but at the end of the day, we realize the only reason why somebody is actually difficult or difficult in our lives, and the only way they can be difficult is if we're being difficult. Is if there's something inside of us that difficulty, that frustration, it resonates with our inner core of who we are. All of a sudden, we're seeing a reflection of us in another person that we don't like about us, or something that makes life frustrating for us, or something that's so deep-seated we never thought about addressing. And when I heard that from the monk, I said, you know what? I hate you, but I like you. That was good. All the notes that I took, I literally crumpled them and threw it. And I was like, okay, I get it. It's all about me. So the more difficult somebody is, and the more difficult you feel that conflict, what we do to embrace with our inner monkness as a New Age monk, okay, is to take a step back and take a deep breath, be present in the moment, and appreciate the fact that you just saw a glimpse of yourself in that person, in that situation. And if we are willing to release that, all of a sudden, the reality of that particular situation in that event will diminish. And the more work you do in releasing that out of yourself, sooner or later it disappears. Because the truth is, we can't control anything that anybody does around us, right? The only thing we can embrace is how we respond to it. And so instead of allowing ourselves to get into a catabolic state, get angry, drink poison, hoping that another person will die because we're angry at that person, because that's really what anger is, right? When we get angry at somebody, right, does it make us feel good? Maybe for a moment it says, I'm so angry because, and you're energized. But then, because of the state or the label that we put on it, say, I am angry, all of a sudden the energy starts to turn into a catabolic energy, which then starts breaking down into a negative state. So instead of spiraling up with it, we spiral downwards, okay? So we shift that label, we shift that energy, we embrace the fact that I have that energy, but let's not mislabel it. And in order to do that, we need to go within and say, okay, find those knuckles in our daily activity, allow ourselves to meditate and release and focus on releasing that. The New Age monk does not need to change anything in his or her life to embrace spirituality. We just need to find it within the knuckles. I love using the example. I think if you were in my last talk, it's the same thing. When you look at a jar full of marbles, we say that jar is full of marbles. And then we say, how many marbles are in there? So we count and see how many marbles are in there. We can't put any more marbles in there because it's full. Okay? It's full of what? Marbles. But really, if we look at it, is the jar truly full? We know marbles, when they sit next to each other, you put 3 together, it doesn't really take up all that space. What's in between those marbles? An infinite amount of space, molecules, time, space, anything that you could possibly think of. We can pour water in there. I thought you said it was full. No, I can pour water in there. After the water, now it's really full. No, I can pour dirt in there now as it filters down and goes through all the water, right? I could put food coloring in there, an infinite amount of food coloring pretty much until you change all the different colors. Our lives are no different. We think that our lives are full. We think that our schedule is packed. But in reality, within our schedule of everyday activity, there's so many pockets where we can embrace that inner monkness, embrace that spirituality to find that peace and serenity that we need to propel us and replenish us throughout the day. So what I like to do right now is, I know some of you came in here and says, yes, I want to know how to deal with difficult people. Okay? And what I like to do is do a little exercise where you tell me something that's difficult or something that you've experienced that's difficult and it still remains to be labeled as a difficult situation or person in your life. And we'll work together really quickly and shift our perspective just a bit just to see how we would approach that if we were to encounter it again. Because I guarantee you, if you encountered just the other day a difficult person and you said, I'm not dealing with this person anymore in my life, guaranteed someone else will come in to fill that space.
Keeps coming back.
Right, until the universe decides that you have found a way to let that go from your inner being, right? Does anybody have a situation that they want to share, possibly, that's along the lines of difficulty, or just have a question? Yes, Jason.
People that owe me money.
Right. Okay. So is there a specific, now how did that whole thing transpire in terms of how did they end up owing you money?
By me giving them money.
Okay. And how did they ask you?
Sincerely, and like they really need it, and they would really, give me back like next week, but a year later.
And what was the motivation of you giving them money to begin with?
I could see myself in them. How would I feel if I was asking somebody for help?
Right. And then, so what's the emotion that's usually attached with something like that?
That they don't respect me, I guess. Or
Well, emotion, let's go back to you giving them money. Yeah, you giving them, offering your help, so to speak. Right? So what's usually attached with the emotion of that?
The emotion?
Mm-hmm. Because something drives it. At the end of the day, any type of action that we take in life, there's an emotional motivation. That's the core. And then we make sense of it by bringing it into our neocortex and logically, well, it makes sense for me to do this, but at the end of the day.
Worthiness is an emotion? That you're worthy?
So you felt worthy to give him this money, or him or her, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm trying to have you kind of get into more of a baseline. Okay, worthy is also another definition of something even more basic in terms of the emotion that drives it. The whole point is what we want to do. Okay, we tend to say, okay, why is this person not doing this? We saw, but what you said was great. I saw a little bit of me in this person. Okay. And at the end of the day, we're always trying to do work to love ourselves better, right? So as a way to go through that process, most of what we do is if we see something that we need to embrace better in ourselves and in another person, we would do what we would do for ourselves with expectations that they are who we are, right? There's a concept of, I don't know if you heard enough, like people often say that whenever I lend money to somebody, doesn't matter who it is, I never expect it back. Unless it's like a contract or it's like a credit card or something like that, then even then, some people don't, pay it back. Okay? So what happens is that when we look at that situation, okay, and it's giving you a negative state of this negative feeling, so to speak, or catabolic state, okay, this is the time to ask yourself, what am I seeing in that situation that I'm a part of? When we take accountability and ownership for everything that we feel with that person, instead of blaming that person or blaming the situation, okay, then you'll start to find out that I'm beating myself up about something, right? When we shift then, immediately shift, okay, if we can't really define right away how to fix that situation, if we shift into a state of love that says, I need to love myself for that. There's something that I'm protecting myself about, and I need to appreciate that first. Then I love myself better. And then when we start shifting and start raising up that vibration, all of a sudden this becomes trivial, but then you start to see more of yourself. And when we're able to see that, bring it to our consciousness, releasing it is the easiest next step. Because before we bring it to the surface, just like seeds growing plants out of the ground, we know nothing that's going on in the surface and we can't release it, right? So regardless of what the situation is, at the end of the day, money is money. We can make it anyway. We know that, right? People owe us money, something like that. It's more than just about the money. You know, it's bringing to surface something, right? So I know a lot of people that owe me money, but I don't remember who or where anymore, right? Because I know when I do that out of love, per se, you know. And what we want to talk about, one of the things I talk about, and I'll say that for a different talk, is the type of love. Because you guys ever heard that phrase that they do a lot, especially in urban culture right now, talk about one love, right? It says, well, I don't love that guy very much, or I don't love that person very much, or I love this person, I love my friend one way, and I love my significant other another way, and I love my family another way, right? And we label it differently. But you notice we still use the same word, love, right? I love my parents one way, I love my significant other the other way, I love my friends in one way. You say love, 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 the only difference is there's an extra filter on it. Friend, love, parents, love, significant other, love. This is society and this is our culture, forcing us to apply filters to this one central feeling, okay? When you love a friend and you truly love a friend, and when you love your parents and you give them that hug, what does it feel like? It's that same warm, fuzzy feeling, right? It's that same warmth that you feel, body to body, essence to essence, whatever the case may be. But because we have to conform to society, well, I don't love him that way. He's just a buddy of mine. You know, it's kind of a bromance thing, but it's still, you know, it's just a friend. But I love my wife, or I love my girlfriend, or I love my significant other better, or differently. It's just different. The reality, it's just a different filter. So even if people that we do not connect with and we have difficulty with, there is still one love that unites us, but because it is a different filter that we put in front of that person because we're reflecting and seeing ourselves in it, we forget and we relabel to something else. So what we have to remember, how this all connects and everything like that, we basically in NLP, there's a term, neuro-linguistic program, there's a term called chunking up. We chunk up to a higher level. We go broader. We generalize the whole thing, one love, and then we say, okay, great. What filters am I placing on this? And sometimes we filter to a point where it changes the emotion and the warm, fuzzy feeling to cold and hard. So how many filters are you putting there in place as a reflection of yourself from that core essence of who we all are? Right? Does that make sense? Does it kind of follow?
I got it.
I hope that helps a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Perspective.
Yeah. And that's really all it is. Because the New Age monk understands and embraces the fact that we're only given 20% fact of any kind of event, any type of situation. The rest of it, we make up. We fill in the blanks with all these different stories to make it so that we can elicit the state that we want in ourselves. Think about it. Think about every event and every situation that you've gone through in life, and think about the true facts. The fact is, this is a specific color. The fact is, this is actually made out of paper, right? But who made this paper? Where this paper came from, we can only guess. The company that I got this paper from, okay, but I can only guess what type of people work in this company. Sure, I can go by what people are saying and everything, but until I meet this person for the owner of the company, I really won't know how they run the company. I can read the newspaper all day, but we know how the newspaper is. We know how the media is, right? It's twists and turns, and later, and it's like telephone game. I tell you one thing, by the time it gets to here, it's a totally different message, right? So, what are we truly doing then? People say, I'm not creative. We are all amazing Imagineers. We make up stories every single day. So the question is, if you want to be happy, if you want peace and serenity, think about the story that you create. Think about the story you created when that difficult person made your life difficult. What blanks are you filling in, and what are you filling it in with? The fact is, the person did this, and said this. Okay, do you know where they were coming from? Do you know what kind of day they were having before they talked to you? Do you know what day they were having 2 days before that? Until we walk entire lives inside somebody's shoes and in their heads, we will never truly know why someone is being the way they are with you. However, what we do know that all we see in somebody is something that, unless we experience it, we know something about ourselves, whether it be consciously or subconsciously, we will not notice unless it's already in us. Make sense? Good question. Any other questions?
Just a comment. I usually, what I do, if I find myself getting angry or judging a person, like you said, they could be having a bad day, I always stop. Nowadays, since I got into the mediumship, I stop and I ask myself, all right, Craig, who gives you the right to address this when you can just let it go? You know?
Right. When you bring it home.
Everybody thinks it's just this automatic rite of passage that, yeah, I got to say something about this, you know. And all they're doing is making the problem worse. They're taking it off themselves. They think they're putting it back where it came from, but it's still going to come back to them. And now there's going to be 2 hurt people,
right,
instead of just one trying to deal with something that was very small to begin with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that downward spiral that we're talking about, right? You know, and that whole misery loves company,
It's
right?
better to let it pass.
Right.
Not even
Exactly. You know, people, one of the most difficult things we can do in life is to turn the mirror around and look ourselves earnestly and be authentic with ourselves and be honest with ourselves.
It takes a big man to do that sometimes.
It takes a big man and woman. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's one of the most difficult things, and most people don't do it because it's scary.
For that reason,
It's scary. It's just like, okay, I know there's a zit on my face, but I really don't want to see it because then it's going to come into my reality. If I ignore and pretend it's not there because it's right here, if I don't know it and nobody says anything, fine. It's not there.
Yeah, the thing, the Bible, Shakespeare said that will the Lord give us the gift to see ourselves as others see us.
Right. Right. And that's exactly it. Because the only thing we have when it comes to communication is feedback. And that feedback is that every individual, if you look at each other, whatever we see, whatever we notice is a mirror of who we actually are. What we notice, what we admire, what we don't admire, what we like and don't like, what we smell and don't smell. Unless if it's a reality that exists within us already, you can't. It won't even be there. That's why you see people, oh, that person's oblivious. No, it's just not part of their reality.
Everyone's reality is different.
Yeah. Okay. So with that being said, if there are no other questions, I will leave you with that. And because it's a book that's coming out, I have bookmarks for you guys. Which is, you can go to thenewagemonk.com. It's very sparse. It's just a picture with an email list to stay, so you can stay updated on all the isms that I'm putting together. And then as time goes on, if you get on the email list, we'll let you know. I'll give you probably excerpts from chapters from the book. And then that way, you know, ideally by the time the book comes out, you'll probably have a copy of the whole thing already in pieces. But until then, you can get bits and pieces that way. And if you have any questions, by all means, I'm here at the Life Oasis. And again, I thank you all so much for coming to enjoy our Holistic Healing Oasis. All right, thank you.
That was awesome.
Thanks, Craig. I love it. You're always a great support.